Greetings! In this video, I'll be going over my entire process of creating a dark fantasy painting using traditional media. This project was a portrait commission in which the client wanted her fiancé portrayed as a Necromancer for a custom Magic the Gathering card. The request was pretty open-ended, so I had a lot of creative freedom to explore different compositions, settings, and themes. Let's get started. I start by picturing different scenarios. This is a portrait, but I also approach it as if it were a commission for an actual Magic card. Since it's a creature card, I need to focus on the main character and not have too much happening in the background. However, Necromancers are all about controlling minions, so this presents a fun opportunity to add various undead companions. I make 4 value comps, which are just quick studies. I spend about an hour on each one in Clip Studio Paint, a digital painting program. The digital media allows me to work fast, laying down an overall composition and value structure. One rule I try to follow is to lay dark shapes over light values and vice versa, so that we can easily read the shape language. I pay attention to where the focal points lie so that the viewer's eye travels around the composition. In the end, I went with the layout that was heavily inspired by the work of Alex Ross, who's known for doing comic book cover artwork that features these ensemble groups of superheroes lit from above, like his paintings of Justice League and Avengers. Then I spent some time working on character concepts, playing around with ideas for armor, clothing, and accessories. Sometimes I work digitally, but if I'm feeling inspired and I'm not at my desk, I'll draw in a sketchbook. The first thing I do is transfer my layout to the board. This is a piece of 1/4-inch Masonite that has been primed with a coat of GAC 100 polymer and 3 coats of Gesso. I'll put a link to all my materials in the description. So you notice here that I'm tracing. This is because I've already spent so much time working on thumbnails, value comps, concept art, character sketches. In fact, a lot of what I'm tracing here are drawings that I've already created, and the main character's body is based on a 3D model that I created in Blender. So I've already spent probably 12 to 15 hours on the project at this point. But whether you're tracing over your own character sketches, a photo that you've taken, or a stock photo that you've purchased, it's because the client has given you a deadline and you have to meet the deadline as soon as possible. I like watching these time lapses of wet painting techniques because you get to see the paint settle and dry and just do its thing over time, getting a sense of how the value changes as it dries and collects in little micro pools. I'm fascinated by that. So the general technique here involves me getting my brush damp with water and then lifting out the dry paint from the board through the wicking action of the wet brush. And since the board has been primed with gesso, the surface is going to stay intact, unlike if you were to do this on watercolor paper. I will also occasionally paint back over some of the areas that need to be refilled in with detail shadows. That's why you keep containers of the original wash mixtures handy. And sometimes I'll flip the board upside down to get a better angle on things and let the paint run in a particular direction. It's a technique that just takes a lot of practice to get the feel of things, like how much water you need to use on your brush, the force of your brush strokes, all that just comes with practice. This stage of the painting really is all about establishing middle values. Later, I'll paint over this with acrylic and establish my darkest darks and my brightest highlights. I'm also wearing a polyester glove with the fingers cut out, and this is to prevent the oils from my hand re-wetting and maybe smudging the gouache. And you'll also notice that I don't sand my board to make it nice and smooth. I do this because I love the texture of the brush strokes, and you can really see it after the pigment settles into those little grooves and indentations. After I'm happy with how the gouache has established my midtones, I'll seal the entire painting with a layer of matte medium sprayed through an airbrush. This will fix that gouache paint layer and prevent me from re-wetting it and lifting any more of it out. I load a thinned out mixture of matte medium and water and spray several layers to make sure it's fully sealed. I then add several glazes of color with an airbrush just to add some color variation and re-establish local color of skin tones and other surfaces. I found that the airbrush gives me a lot more control over my glazes as opposed to brushing it on. At this stage, I've established all of my middle values. The next step is to add more extreme lights and darks, filling in the background and painting in the tighter details. I do this with a combination of soft body acrylics and FW acrylic ink. I'll apply the ink with either a fine brush or a dip pen. And at this stage, I'm looking to broaden the value curve and add contrast, making sure I keep light shapes in front of dark and vice versa. And I'll finish it off with some final airbrushing for any glow effects, maybe some splatter if it's called for. If the final product is digital, I'll photograph it and bring it into Clip Studio Paint for retouching, value correction, and color balancing. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this process. It was the first of what I hope will be many videos on my painting process. I stream on Twitch on Tuesday and Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central. Thanks for watching.